Hello, hello. Welcome to the Sitdown with Stand Up Comedians. I'm your host, Eddie You the Man. This is a podcast where we try to find out where does funny come from. Spoiler, it's usually trauma. Remember to like and subscribe, start a conversation in the comments, and hit the notification bell. Find us at Sitdown Podcast Milano on all social media platforms, and this is a Arcade Studio production. Okay, welcome. Thank you for those tuning in. This is a sit down with stand-up comedians, and today we have our guest, Vamshi Krishna Demagatla. Did I say it right?
Perfect.
Oh, okay. Hello. How are you?
But you can just call me Vamshi.
Okay, thank you. But I would practice that. You saw me practice that, so I got it done, and that was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like an A.
Better than the Italian questura.
Oh, okay. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously where you're from, what you do, and everything like that.
I'm 26 years old,
Mhm.
and I come originally from India, from the south of India. I come from like a city which is actually quite big in India, and it's called Hyderabad, and it's super famous for food.
Mhm.
And the spiciest food in India comes from my region, basically.
Ooh, I love spicy food. That's okay.
Ah.
I have the connection now. So next time I go.
Yes.
That's how. Yeah. And where is it? North, south?
It's in like technically it's more in the center,
Uh-huh.
but ideologically it's in the south, because
Mhm.
India is like divided ideologically into north and the south.
Okay.
And that's it. There is no center as such in India.
Okay. Interesting.
So ideologically we are from the south. We are very proud of that. And so I came here in Milan like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my research. I'm a PhD candidate. I'm in my final year of research. And
Show us your badge. Show us your
oh
badge.
yes,
You know? This is a
this baby comes with
turn
me
around, yeah.
everywhere I
Yeah,
go.
everywhere. Even when he does stand up, we always say, "Yeah, you gotta just have your badge." He does it with everything.
Yeah, but I do the joke. I say that I'm not here with your pizza delivery, but I'm not kidding you. I have been mistaken like 3 times for the pizza for the
Ah.
delivery, but I was just fucking wearing my bag, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, I get that. So you have to announce it. Hey, hey, I'm a doctor, okay?
Yeah.
I'm a doctor. Excuse
Not
me.
yet, hopefully.
Whoa, watch that tone, yeah? You're gonna deliver it to me, you know?
My
Well,
professor will be like, not yet. You've
Yeah.
not yet defended it. So.
Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so what exactly are you studying?
So I'm doing like physics, but for medical imaging.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so we're working with like hospitals. We have some hospitals like San Raffaele or some hospitals in Italy, and we have like instruments over there, and we're trying to find like alternative imaging to X-ray technology because it's
Wow.
harmful and expensive.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So that's our thing, yeah. So sometimes I do measurements in the hospitals, but mostly I'm in the lab. But it's fun. It's nice.
Okay. And then you do comedy. So
And
that's like
then
the
I do-
opposite. So tell me how did you get into comedy?
Ooh. Well, okay. The thing is, it's. I used to do theater a lot in India, so it's
Mhm.
not the first time I've been on stage. So I used to do theater for almost like 12 years in India, like at my university. But we had a huge following. Like we used to do theater in front of like 5,000 people. So I've done a lot of theater. And when I came to Milan, I love theater, okay? I love filmmaking, and I wanted to actually get into it as a profession, or let's see where it takes me. And so I was looking for something like that in Milan. And I actually tried it out at Politecnico. I found a theater group. They're called Teatro della Biglia, beautiful group. But then I had a problem with the language, it's Italian, and I couldn't speak, I couldn't interact. And so I felt like a beginner.
Yeah.
The problem is after doing 12 years of it, I wanted theater for me is something where I can relax, but I was just like so constricted. And so I was just basically looking for some place to go out on stage.
Yeah. Okay.
And I met one of the comedians like randomly, and he said, "Oh, there's a stand-up comedy place you can try out."
Who rep him, say that.
Oh, is Ludo.
Ludo. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, interesting. Yeah.
He's actually like the brother of one of my friends. I
Okay.
had no fucking clue. Like we just met randomly at like dinner one day, and he said, "Oh, okay, he does theater." So I was talking to him, and he said, "Okay, this is English stand-up," and so I decided one day to try it out, and it was just like so amazing.
Yeah. The feeling you get, it's like no other. I always say it's like a drug,
Yeah.
You get that first hit, you're like, I want more, give me more,
Exactly. I mean, even if you're like tired the full day, but when you're on stage, it's an entirely different feeling.
Yeah. The energy just comes to you. And I remember a couple of times I was sick. I think I hosted once and I was super sick. And I remember like, it was the first time, the second time I was going to host. And I was like, oh God, I'm sick. It's like the worst timing to be sick. And I remember I get on stage and I would just light up. And I was like, yes. And then I got off stage like, like look like I'm dead. And someone came up and was like, Eddie, are you okay? Like when you're on stage, you look like fine. But when you get off stage, you look like you're dying. I was like, yeah, that's how you have to do. You get on that stage and everything's a performance, man. Everything.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, being on stage, it's like, because sometimes people say, how is it similar to theater? I mean, it's different. But for me, like, when I'm on stage, there's a different kind of vibe over there. I just love being, it's me, everyone's looking at me. And I'm going to say that sometimes I'm a bit of an egotist. I want the audience to be with me. I love an audience.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
but you have to love the audience, because that's when you love the audience loves you. It's always a reciprocal thing that you give it out and give it. And you have a really good stage presence on, and I like how, like, I've seen you work and like you seem really relaxed. Like you're like on you like lean back and you're like, hey, what's up? Like, damn, this guy's not even like, yeah, I'm just here on another Tuesday. You guys here too? Okay, cool. It's like you're really mellow and chill. So it's like really interesting to see that. Yeah. And you said you used to direct. You were directing.
Yeah. So I actually started out with acting. And like I loved theater and filmmaking, but at one point when you're doing theater, you realize that the most important person is not the actor; it's the director, because the actor is just a puppet. The director you can have like a bad actor and an amazing director, and it's still great.
Yeah.
But if you have a bad director, that's it; everything is ruined.
Yeah.
And so at one point, I realized that I'm a control freak. Okay, in my show, I want everything how I want it.
Okay.
And to have that, I have to be the director.
Okay.
And so I started like writing plays. I used to direct them. And for me, it was just more of having that it has to be like this. I have a vision, and I'm not like egoistic, but I feel I'm a little bit better. So if there was someone else, yes. I mean, I have worked with many other people, but sometimes I feel I have this vision and it's going to be great. And it has been great many times. So
you feel it. Yeah.
And actually, because of that, that's where I also started writing. So for me, writing comedy wasn't new, because I also did like comedy plays. So I knew how to write comedic timing.
Yeah.
So I think like when the opportunity came up for stand-up comedy, and people are like, oh yeah, but you have to write. And I was like, well, okay, I've written like a play for 2 hours, so I can write 5 minutes. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I find myself like, I also write and whatever, but yeah, it's a different thing. I liked doing comedy. It's just, I don't know. It's that high of it and all that stuff. Would you say like, as a director, you're a person who's just like, no, do it again. No, this is horrible. Or you're just like, yeah, that's good, guys. Just let's do it again. Or which one?
No, I would be the second type.
You'd be the second one.
But then, I would be the second type, but I would also say do it again.
Do it again.
I have given, like, it depends on the actor. Like, I've worked with some amazing actors. And so I give them the freedom. I say, do what you want.
Okay.
But sometimes you have people who are maybe just new, like, they just have a few lines.
Yeah.
So they really don't know how to act. So I'm like, okay, you have to do exactly as I say.
Yeah.
Not because I'm trying to control, but I'm just trying to like, help you out.
Yeah.
But the other big actors who know what to do, I'm like, guys, you're free. You can change the script a little bit here, there. If I feel something is off, I will tell you. But I will not be like, you have to do only my way.
Okay.
So it's very dependent also on the person.
Yeah. I think like in this aspect, I've always heard this, like leadership is the biggest component of everything, because it always starts from how it's led. And when you have a good leadership, you get good results. When you have bad leadership, you get shitty results. And so you have the best leadership that most of the time are those who allow those people to do what they're good at and just guide them, and because you see the bigger picture, but you see the smaller picture that each person sees, and you're able to put those puzzles in. So you're like, I see this person how he does it, I need to fit them in a right environment that he does it the best way with other people.
Exactly. But one thing I actually learned from this, as you were talking about the bigger picture, what I learned from theater was that to see the bigger picture, you have to come out of it. So also I was an actor, so I would actually get all of the lead roles. But sometimes when I was a director, I felt, this is my personal opinion, I feel like a person can be an actor and a director. But I think if you're acting, you are not able to direct. In a movie, it's different because you have like a film that you record and you see. But in theater, if you're directing, I think you should not act. So many times I got offered roles, but I was like, no, I want to direct, so I will go out. Because I can give feedback.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, let's now switch gears. I love to say this. Switch gears, and let's watch. We have a video that you get sent to us, a couple, and I chose one. So we're gonna watch this really quickly, and then we'll talk about it. Okay.
If you go more, like thematically, let's go country-wise. Just look at Italy. They lost both the fucking world wars. They couldn't colonize one bloody nation. They didn't even qualify for FIFA. And look at their food. Look at the Indians. We got fucked in the ass for 200 years by everyone imaginable. We are not a confrontational country. Look at our food. Look at the Mexicans. They're getting popped off every day by the Americans. And look at their food. And now think about the other side. The British. I have a question for the British. It's just, why? You guys stole from us for 200 years for our spices to cook this shit? When I eat some Indian food and take a shit the next day morning, my shit has more spices than the shit that you cook. The Germans. You can't even say German food. I'm just gonna say German edibles. Because that's all they are. They are just edible. The Dutch. You can't even say Dutch edibles because Dutch edibles are not edible without side effects.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so tell me about that joke. How did you come up with that, and how did you start? Do you write it? You come up, or you just talk about it? How?
I don't know. I just remember actually that set was entirely different. When I first started doing it, it was basically saying that, there is a really inverse relationship between violence and food. And my bigger thing was, I was more concentrating on nowadays no one knows how to cook. And that's why we are more violent and etc. But it was not landing. And so I remember just getting this idea that, look at India and the British, and they have such shit food and we have such good food. And that was the first joke I actually came up with. Because also, I have to agree that sometimes, you have cheap shots. It's an easy joke to make.
Joke, yeah.
And as an Indian, I know if I say British, everyone will laugh. I mean, so I am guilty of using that because sometimes you're desperate. You're like, okay, I need something. And I know if I just put the British and as an Indian, they're like, okay, that's a joke.
Yeah.
And so I started out first with that one. And then I was trying to expand it. And so I was just like, okay, the British, the Dutch, and this thing. But yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do jokes about the British, but not like the stereotypical ones. I mean, there's a lot of history that many people don't know. They just know that British colonized India.
Yeah.
And most people don't know that most of the war heroes, this is going to be a bit sad. Most of the war heroes, for example, of the World War and etc., were actually criminals in India, like the shit that they did during the same period.
Yeah.
So, I remember there was this time when, in US, they were pulling down the statues of all of these old leaders because they were actually involved in, in the slave trade, back then. Because now they're like, oh, they're leaders. And I was like, if I go to London, I would feel the same way.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to talk about this. And so my idea was that slowly I'll start with jokes.
Yeah.
And then make some more jokes about the British. But then I think the problem is that in Italy, the audience is not there so much. This would kill in India or in Britain.
Yeah. Okay.
But in Italy, people don't know that much of the Indian culture or the history.
That you bring up a lot of good points there. First, I lose it. But the first point was the idea of you started off with a joke and that didn't land, and so you go back and and a lot of the times what people don't understand is that's what happens most of the time. You start with a joke and you think it's good. You start with a joke and it doesn't land, so you have to go back and just change it. And I swear, I remember I have this new joke that I haven't been able to touch, but I had this idea months ago. I just couldn't put it in the right context. And so I'm just I have this, but I don't know what to do with it. But it's a good idea, but I can't put it into something because it wouldn't be funny unless it's in a good context. And I came up with something eventually. But it's having this idea and constantly molding it, kind of making it into something that it is, because it's a good idea, but ideas are just ideas. They become better when you start to imprint more into it. So that's really interesting.
True. Then the other thing, what you were saying, sometimes you have these amazing jokes, but then, for example, since I came from a theater background, For me, I can't just do like punchlines. I'm not the person who just
Yeah.
shifts between jokes. For me, my entire set has to be one story.
You're a
So-
storyteller, just like me. I
Yeah.
feel you.
So
Yeah.
it has to be like that. So as you said, sometimes you get some amazing joke, but it does not fit into the story. And so you're just keeping it aside. You're waiting for the perfect story. You're waiting.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I feel like sometimes I'm losing out jokes like that.
Yeah.
So in fact, recently for the first time, I did a show which was just jokes after jokes, unrelated.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very relieving for me. Like, the first time in my life, I was not bothered if my set has an ending, a beginning,
Yeah.
something. But I agree with what you were saying, that, you know, sometimes you have these amazing jokes and you don't know where to put. Like,
Yeah.
so these jokes, I always had the British jokes, but I
Yeah.
just didn't know where to put them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't want to just say it for the sake of saying.
Yeah. And then another thing I like to touch on is the idea of like knowing, like you said, I have these jokes, but it wouldn't hit in Italy because there's not the context behind it. And I found that myself in the same way. I remember I started to do some like black jokes or jokes about like, you know, O.J. Simpson, and like everyone's like, who the hell is O.J. Simpson? It's like, oh damn. This does not, you know, it doesn't translate. And a lot of
Yeah.
times it's not that it's not even the words don't translate, it's the idea and the context behind it does not translate. So every time you go to a different like country per se, let's say that, or culture, you have to slightly change your jokes because the things you would say is funny in one place, it's not always funny in another place because they don't know.
Exactly.
Unless this is another thing you have to do, some people, is that you can introduce the idea, but when you introduce the idea, you need to explain it, but very fast and very simple. And that's, you know, if you're going to, he's like, yeah, like, but sometimes it doesn't work. Like you say, okay, O.J. Simpson, he was this person that like killed a lady. And then, but then when you start to say, and then he did this, and then he did that, then it's like, okay, no, that's too much. No, you know what? You guys don't get the joke. It's fine, you know? So it's, yeah, no, that's really interesting.
You know, in fact, when you were telling about the thing that people don't get the jokes here, like, I mean, it's very dependent. I don't know if you remember, like, there was this time when Marco Moretti put
Marco
like
Moretti,
this big message on our group. And it was like saying, what is a good joke? And he had given like certain criteria. I remember reading that, and one of the things was that, you know, most of the jokes are like topical. And so he said the problem with them is that they don't work everywhere. And at that point, I didn't understand it so much because I always only performed in Italy.
Yeah.
So all of my jokes were a lot of Italian-related jokes. And I understood that statement when recently I was in Ireland. And I was so excited because they have an amazing comedy scene in Ireland. Even like the small towns, amazing. You have so many comedy clubs. And I was so excited to be doing comedy in an English, okay, I know they're Irish, but like an English.
You watch out. Watch out, man. You might
English
cause some
speaking.
problems. Cause some problems there, man. That's completely, you know, they fought a lot for that, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. We'll edit that out, don't worry. well, maybe not. We'll
The
say
IRA, you can't find me.
yeah, please don't. No, yeah, go ahead. So you're saying like, so you tried to translate these jokes, but
Yeah, because I realized when I went there, like 90% of my jokes were Italian related or even Milan related, and I couldn't use them. So I had to sit and like start afresh. And then, but the thing was, I had a very less time. So all of my jokes over there, again, were Irish related jokes. So I actually wrote like 3 sets over there. And then I come back to Italy and I can't use them again ever.
Yeah. The topical thing is very interesting because it works on 2 levels. It's a topical thing that you can only use that in some places. Also, the topical thing that it's time related. So that means you can use it now, like, you know, the Jeffrey Epstein thing. It's going to be funny now, but it's less funny over time. And eventually it's not going to be funny at all because it's old news. So
That's
when you
true.
do those topical things, they will get laughs because people are like, ha, I know this thing. But then it becomes old news, and so it becomes an old joke, and you can't use that, you know. And for me, I'm going to Berlin at the end of this month. We're in June now, so yeah, and I'm gonna do some comedy there, and then I'm going to do some comedy in the States. And you know, all my jokes I've done because I've always been here in Italy is like about, you know, in here. So I had to go back and think like, what jokes can I do that would be translate over, you know? And so a lot of the last couple of months, I was like, I need to make jokes that are very, you know, like people can get no matter where, you know, like something that's relationship wise, you know, friends wise, like those things, because then those things you can translate into anything because people always feel that I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have this situation, blah, 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 blah. So always works. But the topical things, yeah.
But is it like very different in the US, like compared to over here? I mean, I don't know. I've never actually done comedy in the US.
I've never done comedy either. I've only started here. I started here in Milan, like
Really?
a year and a half. I never did comedy before Milan. So it's very funny because I never did comedy. I'm an American that never
Yeah.
did comedy in the States, started here in Italy, and now I'm going to go back to the States and say, yeah, okay, so I'm doing comedy, you know? And it's like I've never, so it's a very, I don't know how it's gonna be, but it's gonna be very interesting. But yeah, I started here.
Because when I normally meet an American, I always think that they, because okay, I mean maybe I'm wrong, but I think like I would consider like America to be kind of the birthplace of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, that's what
I
everyone
mean,
says. Mhm.
it is. We have to agree that. And so when I meet some Americans, I always think that, these guys are good. I always assume that they start in the US, but
Yeah.
I never knew this actually, that you started directly in Italy.
Yeah, I mean, I started my comedy, but all my my comedy comes from comedians I saw in the States. So like
Okay.
I reference them. So like I had like mine as OL is storytelling, and so there's certain people, Cat Williams, Dave Chappelle, that like they do really good storytelling, but also like they work with different sounds that I really. So when I'm thinking of a joke, I'm thinking, not like how would they do it, but in a sense like how, if they were to do this joke, would it be performed, but without copying them, because I don't want to copy them, I want to be my own person, but that idea. But yeah, I started here in Italy. Last thing I want to say, but not last thing, but what you just said was about the cultural thing about the British, about the British, and so you have those jokes, and how like. What I wanted to ask is this thing about like you have this conscious thing you want to talk about, and so do you feel for you in comedy you have to like you have, not that you have to, but you would like to display something?
That's a very tricky question, because the thing is that sometimes I want to go into like these social issues or a political issue, but it can also give off a feeling that you're doing comedy for the sake of giving a message, which is not what I'm doing. So sometimes people say if I do like some joke which is just stupid, they're like, okay, but why are you not talking about a message? So I think it's tricky because some people who get offended and they say, okay, if you're going to talk about this issue, talk about this too.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing comedy for talking about issues. It's
Yeah.
just maybe something I want to talk about. So I don't know. I wouldn't say my comedy is that. But I think it's more easier for me to talk about those issues through comedy rather than have an actual debate with someone.
Yeah. Debates never go anywhere.
Oh.
I come to the States, so the whole Donald Trump thing. You know how many people come up to me and be like, because I was here again. All these things happen. I was here in Italy when he got elected. So I was actually, I left in 2016 and I was here. And so me and my friend Tommy, funny guy, shout out to him. We stood up all night watching the election, and I was like, yeah, man, no, it's gonna go good. No, he's not gonna win. And then he won. And I was like, oh wow, I woke up the next day, had a dream about it, like weird dream. And I was like, yeah, I lost. But anyways, from that time over, everyone started asking me, but what about Trump? I met some people who wanted to talk how good he is and how bad he is. At some point, you just get tired. And you're like, yeah, okay. You think that? That's cool. That's great. Think that. But I also have the idea of I like to have messages, but again, don't want to come off as preachy. I don't want to come off preachy. I don't want to feel like I'm telling you this thing. You should listen, because I'm the teacher. I want to come off as someone who has a message that is in the story, and the story is the point, and the message just comes with it. So like it doesn't have to be so in your face, but you're like, oh, but why? And so like that's very interesting. Okay, so to go further, you're a storyteller, right? So
yes.
How was that being a storyteller? Why do you choose storytelling as your medium?
I think firstly I think I have a lot of funny stories in my life. Okay, like I do a lot of stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I meet someone, I'm actually a very introverted person. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like I mean I do all of this comedy, I do theater, so people always assume I'm extroverted, but I'm actually very introverted. So if I'm in like a party or meeting someone new, I'm just like, what are they thinking of me? What do they think? So I always have this need that I always had it. I do have it now, that I feel I have to impress other people. And so my way was to, tell stories and say, oh, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And rather than saying like preachy stories or like proud stories, I was like, it's more easier to break the ice with funny stories.
Yeah.
And so I just started telling my stories to people, but I can say it in like a funny way, because I always had this comedic timing. When I was an actor also, I did a lot of comedy acting. So I was like, I can say these stories. And I think that's where I realized maybe I can tell these stories on stage.
Mm.
Because when I was telling people, they were like, oh my God, this story is so funny.
Mm.
And I was like, of course, it didn't happen exactly the same way. I do a little bit of acting, a little
exaggerate
bit of
it, you know?
exaggeration.
Yeah. I hate when people's like, but did it really happen exactly that? It's like, dude, it's a story. Calm down. You know, like,
Yeah.
was it really 1,000 meters? Like, come on. It's obviously exaggerated, but you know, it's,
Yeah.
you know.
They're like, were you thinking that in that moment? I'm like, dude, I was getting beat up. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking.
I'm gonna ask you about that. That's really interesting. But yeah, that one, yeah. What was I gonna say? So yeah, I also do the storytelling as well, and I think for me, what I found interesting is that storytelling is very, very interesting, but also it needs to be done in the proper way. You know, because again, you're doing a storytelling, so that means you're telling a story that has a beginning, a middle, and end. What people don't realize is that audience have a short attention span. Okay, so that's like 45 seconds at most, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just like Instagram, you know? So they want, like, what's the point? Where's the punchline? What's the laugh? Whatever. And so when you have the little small ones, that's when they keep laughing. But when you have something that's like over time, that's more difficult because you need to keep their attention. And those different things that are happening are all integral into the joke. So if you miss one thing, then that punchline is not funny because that's the lead up, you know? And then the thing that I like try to think of, and I was thinking about this the other day, was like, it's all about how you say it. It's not even the story, you know? Because I was thinking like this, like, okay, for example, you tell a joke, you know, you tell a story, you know, it's like, yeah, so the other day I went out and I saw this guy and I haven't seen him so a while, and he's like, hey, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm doing good. And yeah, he said, oh, you know, what are you doing now? I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing anything. He's like, okay, well, we want to come back to my place? Like, yeah. So we went back to his place and we had a beer. That's a story. Now, that's a story, but just a story.
Yeah.
But you lose because you like so monotone. So you have to ask, like, so, you know, did you hear what happened? You know, you want to hear what happened to me the other day? No, I saw this guy. I haven't seen him in so long. It was so random, you know? And he came up to me. He's like, yo, man, what are you doing? I was like, I thought to myself, what am I doing? I was like, you know, and then I was like, oh, nothing. He's like, oh, yeah, me too. Man, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not doing anything. It's like, yo, want to come back to my place? It's like, well, I'm not doing anything, so why not? Let me go back to your place, you know? So we went back to his place. Dude, you never see, his house was huge. His TV was huge. And then we just watched TV. Same story. Same story. But it's different because you're adding so much. You're adding pauses. You add emphasis. You're elongating things. You're also interacting. So you're like, wait, pausing. And I think that's what makes storytelling different because you have to incorporate all these things. Sometimes I do sound, so I'd be like, poof, 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 you know, or like some like random thing, because then again you have to draw back the attention of the people, and so like they get, okay, let me look at my phone. Oh wait, that's that sound. What's that sound? why is he doing that? You know, like, okay, I need to listen. You know, and draw them back. You know, do you do that when you're like doing your?
I do that actually, like, you know, I always try to like put jokes in between. So for example, like, I mean, when I'm saying a story, I say, oh my God, in that moment all I could think was these guys are, but in that moment I was not thinking. I don't even remember what the fuck I was thinking. But I say something funny. Obviously in that moment I was not thinking that, but that doesn't mean it's true, because when I later think about that incident, that thought does come into my mind. Not for the sake of comedy, but just for thinking that, you know, they didn't actually steal anything from me. They were so fucking inefficient. I mean, I think about that, but later in that moment, no. So I think, I mean, I think the storytelling, as you said, you know, the problem is attention span. So you have to keep it. But then what some people also do is, like, in middle of a story, if you go to another story, that is a nice way to like segue somewhere else. But then you have to be careful not to lose the attention. So you have to ensure that these pauses in between are not too long, because otherwise people will forget the first story.
Exactly. The pause is where, like, even on the video that you saw, there was a pause, which also, I think people forget this. You need the pause to allow the audience to laugh and or clap. You know, because then it gives off that, okay, you can clap, you know, because people don't even know, can I clap or not? And then, you know, someone starts clapping, I'm like, okay, we're clapping, you know, and you need that pause. As soon as you're like going off to the next one, you're pretty much saying, yeah, that was funny, but not that funny, and now I have another one, you know. So it's like the pauses.
The audience needs a release.
A release, you know, and I think the pauses, the moments, those are very, very, very important. And you oh, sorry, you're saying something?
No, go on.
So I remember we had this conversation, well, like, like, I guess I have so many things and I'm just like, we're just flying by it. But yeah. So you're here in Milan, and you've been here how many years now?
So it'll be like 3 years this September, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's 3 years this September.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And so for you, what was it like moving here and living here now 3 years?
Ooh, that's a lot of trauma you're trying to uncover.
Here we are. This is what we do. Yeah. Yeah.
No, well, I mean, like, at first it was really exciting, because it was also one of my dreams to travel, to come to Europe at some point. So, for example, I got a job offer in Ireland versus Milan.
Yeah.
And for obvious reasons, I chose Milan because I was like, I don't want to be stuck on an island. And, I need a Schengen visa.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to be stuck on an island. So
Plus there's British people. But not British. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So, I mean, it was really exciting to come to Italy because, there's always like a charm.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember like Milan being the fashion capital. That's what I always heard, okay? But I never knew anything. So I think coming to Milan was nice. I liked it. But then the fucking bureaucracy. Can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Fuck them. Yeah. So go ahead, the bureaucracy.
Yeah, so like the first year you don't enjoy anything because you're just trying to get things done. And in that you're so tired. So I think like my first year I didn't enjoy Milan so much. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the city. And I was always complaining about the city. And it's not the most beautiful Italian city, to be frank. There are much more beautiful places. But I think Milan has a charm that like I wouldn't suggest anyone to visit Milan for tourism.
Mm-hmm.
But to live, I wouldn't leave Milan.
Yeah, I wouldn't live anywhere else but Milan. I always often forget that I live in Italy when I'm in Milan because the characteristics of Italy, the Italian lifestyle, the houses, all gone.
Yeah.
Once you leave Milan, you're like, oh yeah, damn, I'm still in Italy. But once you're in Milan, you're like, yeah, you're in a city that happens, a European city. It's a city that happens to be in Italy,
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then for me also, I come from a really big city in India. Like my city in India, I think has a population of like 10 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really important that I had to be in a city. I mean, I can stay in a small town or something, but not for long. Like I need the chaos of a city. I need the happening of a city. I need like the people, the crowd, things to do. It's nice that if you stay in a small place, you know everyone, but I don't want to know everyone.
Yeah.
You do some shit and everyone knows the gossip.
Everyone's like, yeah. So I fucked her and now everyone's like, shit. Damn, everyone knows my business. Yeah. What the fuck? No, I come from a small town, and that was exactly like that. I came from a town in Rhode Island. It's always the Dubs. Shout out. Which is funny because like it's mostly white people. So it's like one of the few black people there, and so you can imagine my lifestyle there. But that's why I talk like this now. No, but I grew up in a small town, so like small thinking process, and like everyone knows your business. I remember I used to do parties. My dad was like not attached to the community. He was too busy working. So it was like fun because I threw parties. He didn't know about the parties because he didn't talk to anyone else. So it was just like everyone else knew I threw parties. All the parents like, oh, you shouldn't. But people come to my parties, whatever. And like, I think he had ideas, but he's like, I don't care. Like I work as long as you don't get in trouble, whatever. But I remember one time I was doing track and one of my coaches like, so Eddie, I heard you do a party, huh? You're drinking now? And I was like, damn, And yeah, being in a small town, that's why for me, I have to be in the city. It's just too small. It's just, I'm too big to be in something so small. Like, get me out of here, For all my life, I was like, get me out of here, When I'm old, I'm going to leave this bitch, And I did. So here I am. Yeah. But yeah, so go back to living in Milan, and so first year bureaucracy was
I mean, not that now it's better, even now it's shit. Okay.
Yeah. You just live with it, You
get used to it. It's
a
toxic relationship. You're like, well, let's go on.
It is what it is, Like why spend the energy getting mad now?
Yeah.
But yeah, the first year it's a lot of anger, annoyance, but why? And everyone's like, it is like that. And then you're just like, but why? No, it needs to be changed. No, it cannot be like this. No, it cannot work like this. They cannot do this to me. And then later you're like, yeah, okay, it is what it is. Like,
yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah, used to it.
Yeah, and the thing is, the first year when you come, you also don't know people. You don't know whom to meet. So I didn't know many English-speaking people. I didn't know many Italians either. I don't know the language. So it was tough. Then slowly, you start learning the language. And I think that's important, actually, in Italy. Mm-hmm. Knowing the language is important. I mean, it's not that they want you to learn. But if you learn, your life can be much better.
A lot better.
Yeah, and you make more friends, and Italians that way are very friendly. Like I remember the first time, like after 3 days, like I learned like grazie mille,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in like the canteen, and I said grazie mille, and the lady was like, "Oh, tu parli italiano, bellissimo, oh, bravo," and I was like, "Okay, I said one word, but okay."
Subtitles English, I need them. Yeah. No, but it also depends on where you are in the north and south, because I remember like northerners, as we, they're different, like they're a little bit colder. The south are like really warm, and I remember like I kind of love that aspect, but also like southerners are very in your business as well. But I remember one time I was like, I walked into a store and this woman was just like, "Wow, say bello, you're beautiful." And I was like, "Oh, damn, like no one ever said that to me, just randomly, But not even like, "Can I get your number?" But like, "Oh, you're handsome, and like, like, "Oh, thank you, like, here you go, here's your change, bye." I was like, "Bye," and I left that, and like that was 10 years ago, and I still remember that. But like having that, it's you begin to love this kind of things, and you appreciate it. So you have the downside of bureaucracy.
Yeah, I mean, but that happens anywhere. I mean, it's not like, even in India, it's shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not. But when you were saying about like when you come and people are like, I always, because we live in India and we don't really have many foreigners in India because we're a lot of people already, and we really don't care for tourism, external. So, first time when I came out, it was the first time in my life that I was considered...
Came out? Watch your term there,
not yet. If my mom is saying, I'm straight.
Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, the first time that I came out of India, and the first time I realized that I'm kind of exotic. Like, I never looked at it that way. For example, like, it's very weird for me. This is something that I want to share to all Europeans. I don't know why you guys want to get tanned. Because in India, because we were always taught in India that, being dark, being fair is beautiful. And the problem with India is that you don't have like two colors. It's like the entire fucking spectrum, because you have people in the north who are so fair with like blue eyes, and you come south and it keeps getting darker and darker.
Yeah, there are people blacker than black people out there, man.
Exactly.
I was like, no, he's black, man. Like, he's blacker than me. Shit. Yeah.
But then the thing is that, since we are all like Indians, we all look the same. So if you were to just maybe like put like white makeup on someone, he would look like a North Indian, because we all look the same. And we have been taught, ingrained, that being white is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, I had so much of insecurity when I was in India that I am dark, I am not handsome, because people are just like white and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it came to Europe. For me, coming to Europe, actually, for the first time, I felt that insecurity go away, because someone said, "Oh my God, look, you look so like handsome." But I was like, "I'm dark, are you sure?" Like, it was the first time I thought of myself as being actually handsome in my life.
Wow.
I never actually thought of that in India.
Yeah. I think, that's kind of I think in the States, it's like very much like that. Like, it's better to be, and like, so I didn't get like a lot of people, "Oh, you're really, like, handsome." Is more like, but he has blonde hair and blue eyes, and like whatever. But the funny thing is, like in Nigeria, we go do the same thing, and we do this thing called bleaching. So we bleach our skins.
We do too.
And it's a problem. And then like all these like hair products that are like, blonde, long hairs. It's like, the funny thing about this is that it often happens because what? We were colonized by another fucking place, and we share the thing. I'm Nigerian. My country was colonized by the British, so like we still have that, and so it's embedded. But then you come to Europe and they're like, "Yeah, we've had this for thousands of years. We're bored, like we see these people every single day, like give me something new, please, It's like, okay, there, get a nice Indian handsome man, like nice here, okay, come over here." Guys, try some curry now. But the thing is, the thing you have to watch out is the fetishes. Because some people. I don't think I've met anyone on the team, but there is that. There's that. "Oh, you're really nice," and then the fetish. Like, yes, like he's actually no. It has happened to me. I had one person that was like, I could tell it was more of a fetish than it was like he's a nice person that has these characteristics. It's like, no, he has these characteristics, and those are really interesting. And it's like, yeah, okay, I don't really think I could just switch me out with another person. It's the same. But yeah.
Well, I've never heard of an Indian fetish, but okay. That would be interesting.
One day it's coming. You're gonna bring it back. You're gonna start it. it, you know, just with the here. Okay, so you live here in Italy, and you've, as you said, you told me this story, which is crazy, that happened to you. That like you said it also had a bit about it. You joke where like you had the glasses one.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. And so what, like, you know, if you want to talk about it, like tell me the gist of what happened with that.
Yeah, okay. So
And how you made that into a joke, because I mean, yeah, that's
No,
the
okay.
most important part. But yeah,
I mean, basically what happened was that the entire story
Mhm.
was I was walking, like it was not so late at night, maybe like 10, and I was coming back from like swimming, and basically there was like a group of people who kind of surrounded me and started assaulting me.
Mm.
And when I say assaulting, it was not just that they were trying to steal something from me. They were literally like punching me and beating me up.
Mm.
And the thing is that, you know, I'm not at that moment, I don't know why I was stupid, but I'm not really that rich. It's the first time in my life I'm earning. So I was more worried that I don't want to lose my wallet. I don't want to lose my phone. And people say, oh, you know, it's just a thing. I'm like, yeah, but it's fucking expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, I come from a background where I know the value of that. So they started assaulting me, and you know, and they started like punching me. At one point, I was literally on the ground, and they were kicking me.
Mm.
And I just didn't know it. But I was not fighting back, because the first thing my sister, she had taught me was, you know, if you see someone and they ask, don't try to fight back. Just give them money and go. Because don't be stupid. You can't take on 5 people. You're not a fucking superhero.
I'm gonna try. No.
Yeah.
no, yeah, you lose. Yeah, no, never goes. You know?
Yeah, and so I was being like really passive, but at some point I realized enough was enough, and I kind of like pushed them. I got up, I pushed them away, and I ran away.
Mhm.
And there was also actually like this kid, and there was, but I ran away, and I was just like, I was so scared. I remember like, I don't know, in that moment when they were beating me up, I was not really scared because I was not able to think. You know, I'm just frozen. I don't know how to react. But when I started like running, it was the first time I felt so scared. It was the first time something like that happened to me.
Mm.
And I remember like I went back, I went to my friend who was living nearby, and I just was like, I just couldn't go home, because one of the biggest problem was they broke my glasses, as I said. So they stamped my glasses and they broke. Now it's not that I'm blind, but when I don't have my glasses, it's a bit blurry.
Mhm.
But just the thing of not being able to see was scaring me so much, because I can't see who's coming.
Mm.
I remember for the next 2 days, like if people are walking and I'm like, just, okay, what's happening? And it was like, and so it actually put a lot of fear into me. But then the thing is, I've always learned I don't want to tell sad stories. For some reason, I think I don't want to be a mood killer. So I wanted to share this story with people, but I don't want them to give me empathy or
Yeah.
pity, like, oh my God, did that happen? We're so sorry. And I'm like, okay, but what can you do about it?
Yeah.
And so I started telling people, but with like laughing about it, because also that was the way to make it funny for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I realized that after 2 days, I was not going out of the house because I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can't stay like this.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm going to go out.
Yeah.
And so comedy was like my way of trying to not normalize, but get to terms with that incident. And I was like, okay, you know, they say count your blessings. So I was trying to see the positives. And at first I started seeing the positives that, you know, they didn't steal anything. But then I started seeing the funny parts that they didn't steal anything.
Yeah.
After that long.
It's like, damn, like you said, inefficient. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like one guy was trying to take my bag, and one guy is like trying to choke my neck, and I'm like, guys, choose one.
Wow.
Because you can't do both of them, you know?
Okay.
But that's the thing, you know, in my comedy, I say, in my mind, that's what, I mean, at that point, as I said, my mind was blank. I was not thinking anything. I was just like, what's happening? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And later I was like, you know, they couldn't take my bag because they were choking me. They couldn't choke me because they were taking my bag. Yeah, so it was a scary experience.
Yeah.
So when people ask me, like, is Milan safe? I want to tell the story.
Yeah.
But it's not that this is what... So people are like, oh my God, Milan is unsafe. I'm like, no, I mean, it was one incident that happened. I'm not saying Milan is safe. At the same time, Milan is not unsafe, but things happen. Shit happens, so you have to just be careful.
Yeah.
And now I make jokes about it, but I also learned my lesson from it. I was becoming complacent. Now if someone comes on the road and asks me something, and I'm like really wary. If I'm on the road alone, I walk to the other side. I'm like, fuck them. I don't care what they're going to think.
Yeah. I feel like I also have that, like, oh no, like, you know, everyone has the best intention. So like, you know, I have to catch myself sometimes, like, no, like, you know, I want to be nice. I want to be a nice guy and help someone else. And you're like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
but that's, no. But like you touched on something before that you were saying, like, in the moment you made, like later on you made a joke, like this thought process that you weren't having when you're in the moment, because obviously in the moment you're just like, what's going on? What the fuck's going on? And like, you know, and then but then you're saying, but it was true because like that is the situation. So you're not like, I think when you're doing comedy, it's not even that the situation happened. It's a situation that happened, but then you also analyzing that situation and then picking apart and finding what is comical about it, because there is a situation, everything you can bring it. But like you said, I've had situations where like something happened to me and like it's like such a big like weight on me. And then like when I started to make a joke about it, it just became less, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, I'll laugh at it, so it's no longer like painful for me. You know, like, if I make it a joke, then that's all it is. It's a joke. And then
Exactly.
eventually that joke would like, you know, so comedy has that way of like, like, you know, allowing you to accept things, get over it. And like, okay, because with a joke, you can say it only so many times, you know, you're like, okay, that joke's done. Let's move on to the next one. And so I remember one time I made this joke that I had before that I was always doing when I first started. And then like, you know, to like, because that's how I like kind of started comedy, like with this like really harsh breakup that was really bad, whatever. So I made jokes about it, but again, not like, oh, I broke up, cry, but like, okay, it was this, and make it comical. And then like, I think a couple months ago, I tried to like do that same joke, but not the whole thing, because I don't want to really like, but it just wasn't the same. And I knew like, okay, I'm over that. That's not me anymore. That was another person. I said that joke. It was funny in that moment, but it's not the same. I'm not the same person. I'm not telling the same joke. And then, you know, I accepted it as it is, you know. And I think if I had not done it as a joke, I don't think I would have been able to accept it as soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I think the other thing is that it also makes it a bit easier for the other person to hear it.
Yeah.
Because because for example, when I tell the story to my colleagues or my friends who are Italian, they kind of feel a bit guilty because they feel like, oh my God, we treated someone coming to our city like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, guys, it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just like trying to lighten up the mood. But it's funny, you know, when you're telling like a really sad story and you're making a joke out of it. So you're having a blast out of it. And you're like, you know, the stupid guys. But the audience is just like,
Oh my God, are you okay?
and then you feel like you're just in control over
Yeah.
there. There is kind of, I have a sadistic pleasure of seeing, how bad they are feeling and how
Yeah.
much I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
the trauma is mine.
Yeah, it's like, dude, that was nothing. Come on, like, come on, get over it. I live that. I'm laughing
Exactly.
about it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, you have to, you know, a way, you know. That's what comedy is for. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah. And so on another topic. Okay. My question, because I have an Italian girlfriend, and you know, I felt like cultural difference between like, you know, so I wanted to not even about the but more of the cultural. What was the things that you saw like, oh wow, this is completely different from what I do or how I would expect or whatever, you know? Not
yeah.
like personal. You don't have to be like, yeah, she did this, you know. Like, but like, you know, like the idea of like a cultural thing, you know.
No, I think like, for example, like one of the biggest things was the family.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in India also we're a very family kind of thing, but nowadays it's changing. So I never had like a big family growing up. But seeing like an Italian family, like going for Christmas, and like, you know, I thought Christmas just means like lunch. So I'm going to stay for lunch. But then it goes on for like 6 days, and every day you're having like Pandoro. I ate like every day 3 Pandoros.
Wow. Those shits are good.
Amazing.
So
With
good.
mascarpone, it was just like,
Put that sugar on top. That's crack, man. That's crack.
Yeah.
It's really good. You guys know what you're doing here. And they go for so long. I remember I was at dinner for Christmas, and we started around 3 o'clock. We finished around 9, you know?
Exactly.
It was first, second, third. Pause. Let's have a coffee. Let's play some games. Again, more eat, you know, dessert. And it was just so much food, and it was so good, you know? And I was thinking, how do people sit and eat for this long? And then when I was doing it, I understand you guys have figured out the meaning of life. It's eating for long periods of time and not worrying about other stuff with limoncello at the end, you know? Shots of limoncello. Love those. Yeah. But I remember for me, I had like, you know, different cultural shocks, especially like the idea of family. As you said, like it's a very different thing. I think my idea of family in the States and my idea of family as a Nigerian, because I have those two identities. And those are the things I'm always balancing off, because at one side, I'm not really fully American because I grew up in a Nigerian family household, but then I'm not fully Nigerian because I grew up in America. So there's these two identities that I'm always like, you know, I'm neither full of one, but neither one of the other. And so like, there's always that play that's always happening. And I know with families in the States, it's so much, I feel like there's more of a disattachment in a sense sometimes. And like, you know, when you're 18, they're like, okay, get the fuck out of this house, you know, like it's your time. You're an adult. You're either here paying bills or, you know, you're getting your own place. Whereas here, you see like, no, you stay till you're 30. And
Yeah.
a lot of people used to like, I used to be in the person to be like, yeah, but that's too much. But now I'm really like, but why not? Like,
exactly.
why not? I wouldn't want to be 18 living on the streets. Like, oh, where's my next, food coming, Dad? It's like, yeah, but you're an adult now. You're like, no, I'm not though. Last year I was in high school. Now I'm on the streets. Like, it's not the same. It's weird. But like coming from a Nigerian family, like we are, like there's these structures that are very strong. But the idea of like, this is a funny, like I remember once, like I had this friend. Now I'm going on tangents, sorry, but that's just happens.
Well, that's comedy.
That's comedy. That's what makes me a good comedian. I hope so. I remember this one time I was with this kid's house, and and I remember it was him and his mom, and he invited me over, and like his mom was super nice. I remember how nice she was. Like, do you guys want some cookies? Do you guys want this and that? And my mom's like, never like that, She's just like, don't eat all my food, okay? But like, so she's like, do you want cookies or whatever? And he's like, Mom, get out of here. You're so stupid, Mom. I hate you. Go away. And I was like, what? Are you really talking to your mom like that? And it was like such a, like, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, and just walk away. It's like, oh, she's such a bitch. And I was like, what? You call your mom a bitch? It's like, what? If I ever said those words, and in my family, it's like this whole idea of like, no, my father is like the authority of the house. And so you respect him and you do what's told. So you don't ask questions, you literally say, my father says, you need to do this. And I don't say why. I say, okay, and I say, yes, sir, but I don't really say yes, sir. I'm a Nigerian that's like, not really, so my dad gets mad about that. He's like, you should bow, in Nigerian culture, we need to bow down to our elders, like every time. And I'm not a person like to bow down. So I'm just like handshake, handshake. And they're like, but you need to bow down. It's like, yeah, but I can go with the handshake, And that's, And then here you have this family that's very, close, and the mother, the father, and like, the idea of siblings, and, you come home to and the grandparents. I think the grandparents are the biggest thing. Like they really, the nonna and the nonno, they carry the whole family,
Yeah.
And the Sunday lunch, and
I think the other thing is like, it's a nice mix, because in rest of Europe generally it's more like how it's in America, like kids go out when they're 18 and it's not such a family. But I think Italy has a nice mix between like what I would say like Eastern, or also in like how you explained in Nigeria. Like it's a very family structure, but at the same time it's not so rigid. Like for example, you can sit at a table at dinner with all the family, and like half of them will be saying cuss words, like saying cazzo and this. But I would never sit at like my family dinner and say a bad word.
Never.
So they have that freedom, and yet they have that attachment. And I think it's a nice balance.
It's a nice balance, because you're able to be who you are
Exactly.
and find your family without trying to, uphold. I mean, not fully. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's other instances. Well, go further down south. There's some things you just don't do. But like, still, I wouldn't be able to do some jokes or say some stuff to my father that I'm sure, like, I just told my mom this and that, and she's so fine with it. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. That's something I'll take to the grave, and But that's just so I found that very difference of here. But it's interesting. It's interesting living here and like seeing that difference. I think I have that culture shock. Did you have that culture shock? Which was just like,
So for me, like, there were some things like, for example, as I said, like the family structure, or also this concept of like, they're much more relaxed generally. And that was a crazy thing for me, because for me it was like, oh, you have to work, you have to earn money. But then they're like, we earn just enough to live. It's fine. You don't need to earn because in India, everyone is like, the more you earn, you have to have like 3 cars, you have to have a flat, you have to buy a house. And they're like, no, you have to enjoy life. And it makes sense. I mean, if not now, when are you going to enjoy this money?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I really love. And that's probably one of the best decisions of living the States, was like, in the States, I was always with this idea of like, you need to get a good job. You need to get a nice house, a nice car. You need to make as much money as possible.
Exactly.
Your job is your whole life and who you are. And it's this idea of work. And I remember I was in college. I'm a dropout. Proud. Kanye West over here. I was a dropout, and I remember that whole weight of the world of like, I failed at life. And that's how the world sees you in the States. If you drop, if even like, let's say, what I love about Italy, studying here, because I studied here, was that like, if you miss an exam, it's okay. You do it again. If you in the States, you can't really miss exam. And if you miss exam and you have to do it the year again, it's such a bad thing. It's like you failed. And even if you finish like next year, they're just like, yeah, but you did another year, you know? And it's like that whole word. So like imagine that world style of like even in college, it's like you need to get a job before you even get out of college. So I was in my third year and I'm like, oh shit, I need to get a job and I hate my major, you know, and I need to find a job and everyone's finding a job. And that anxiety was just like, nah, I'm going to find a job that I'm going to work for the next 40 years. So I'm going to hate. And so I dropped out and like that whole like shame and blah, blah, blah. Then I moved to Berlin, was there for 9 months. And the funny thing is like, it's the idea of Arbeit, like work, you know, like, you know, they have this mentality of like, it's a wheel, you know, like you have to keep going the wheel. You need to be there early. You need to be there like not even early, not too early, but not late. But you need to show up. If the work starts at 7 o'clock, you need to be there at like 6:50, 6:55. So you could put away your stuff. And at 7 o'clock, you start working. And so I remember I came at 7 o'clock. You're late. I'm like, I'm on time. I was like, no, you're late. You know, you should be here working. And so it was weird. Then I come here and like it's just so much relaxed. And I feel like, you know, everyone's like, yeah, like, it's okay. Like, who cares? You know, I remember for the first time talking to people here. I think I did a study abroad here before I dropped out. And I remember that year was just like me telling people like, hey, yeah, my name is Eddie and I study here and I do this. And then everyone was just like, but do you like it? Which was the weirdest thing. No one ever asked me that. And I was like, do I like it? And then I didn't realize I didn't. And here you just like, yeah, you can work, but like, come on, let's go for a drink on a Tuesday. Let's get an aperitivo. You know, let's have fun. We're not here to work our whole lives. Yeah, we'll work, but that's not our life goal, you know. And you really enjoy the small things of just hanging out with friends, and that's living, you know. I mean, maybe other things don't work, but that thing, I don't know. I want to give that up for that, you know. And I've grown to love it for that aspect of living in Italy, you know. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. And then like studying was like I was less interested because, you know, oh, I can make my schedule. Oh, I can do the exam when I want to. Oh, that's crazy. Dope, you know?
Exactly. And the other thing is, you know, they respect everyone. I mean, for example, in India, it's the same. Like, you know, you have to study. The first thing you go to meet someone and like all of the relatives, everyone is like, okay, so what are you doing? What did you finish? What are you studying? Did you have a job? That's it. Yeah. And you have a hierarchy. So people will talk to only people in their circle. Like it won't ever happen that, in fact, like in India, if someone tells like they're a bartender or like a waiter, it's considered low. Yeah. Like you would look down on them. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that even I had that attitude when I was in India. It came here because when I came here, like, okay, since I work at university, mostly all of my friends are like PhDs but then when I started going out, I met people who were just doing like regular jobs, but then also I have friends who are like doing like bartending or just they're working at like a restaurant as a chef or something. But then there is no hierarchy. Like when we go out for drinks, we're just, no one asks, what are you doing? Yeah. No one asks that
and no
question.
One cares.
Exactly. And no one cares. They're like, we go out for a drink. And then the thing is in India, like if you have a hierarchy, people also kind of try to show pity. So you're like, oh, I'm going to pay. It's okay. I can. Yeah. But here it's like, no, man. Yeah. I can earn for myself. Yeah, I'm a bartender. You have a PhD. Doesn't mean anything for me.
Give me a drink. Yeah, no, that's true. And that's funny because you have like you're earning your PhD, and I do tangents. I'm sorry, but I'm a family. Like the idea of having my father has like a PhD as well, and like the idea of going to school and getting a good education. It's like been here, and like I wouldn't be able to say to my dad. I think I was in Berlin and I didn't go to school. I went there to go to school, but I didn't get in, so I spent 9 months as a bartender. You know, I wasn't even a bartender. I was the cleaner that came like every like for 4 days of the week, 5 days of the week, and essentially I was there for 3 hours those days, and I would like clean up, you know. And so they're like, oh, you know what? We need someone else to be a bartender, so do that. We need someone to do the dishwasher, do that. And so they give me a little bit more hours, but essentially I was just scraping by, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll be a bartender. And I know my dad in my head, I know if I ever tell my dad, like, yeah, Dad, I'm gonna be a bartender, he would disown me. You know, you are not my son. I did all this work to come to America for you to be a bartender in another country. No, so it's but it's crazy because even though I lived in Berlin, I realized it wasn't like it's still people are having good time, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And also here, like you pay your rent, you have the money,
Exactly.
and you go out and you have a good time, but also you get good wage. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you earn a living here, so not the highest, but it's okay. Yeah, it's not the highest, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problem of being in like South Europe, Spain,
Mm.
Italy, Greece. Life is great, money is shit.
Yeah.
At some point, you have
Yeah.
to decide: do you want
Yeah.
money or do you want a better life?
Exactly. You have to do that. And that's why I learned in Berlin and coming here with like, you want in the States, but mostly Berlin and Italy is like that difference. Like, do I want the money and I have like shitty food, cold weather, depression most of the year? Or do I get like, a decent wage, nice beach, go to
Oh.
whatever I want, coast, and like, still live and have a good time?
Exactly.
I think I'll just live for the time being, All the other shit will come later on. Like the cold doesn't
Yeah.
beat it for me. The cold does not beat it for me. I can't do the cold.
Oh, I know. When I came from India, because I come from the south and it's super hot. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I came here and people said, "Oh, it's like maybe you'll have cold weather," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I have hot weather all the time,
Yeah.
so I would prefer cold weather." But it's different. It's not cold. It's depressing, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I never actually thought I would be happy to see the sun in my life.
Yeah.
It's so hot in India. It's like 42 degrees in my city right now,
Yeah.
and I never thought in my life I would say, "Oh my god, I want the sun to come out."
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I miss those things. I grew up in Rhode Island. As I always say, I keep saying this, and like there, it's like very. In the summers, it's like I guess get up to 35. In the winter, you can get to negative 15.
Oh,
So it can
okay.
get like really cold. And so I'm used, and we get a lot of snow. So I'm used to the cold. The cold is like, But when I moved to Berlin, that was something different because I thought, yeah, okay. I looked at the temperature, like, okay, fine, it's cold, but I've dealt with colder situations. But I didn't realize they don't have the sun, man.
Yeah.
The sun is gone for so long, and they have this thing called Berlin syndrome, and people just stay in the
What is
house.
Wait, and now I have to ask, what is the Berlin syndrome?
Okay, Berlin syndrome, they made a movie about it. It's like this idea that when the winter come, people just stay inside and just depressed and just don't leave the house at all. They just stay inside and like they're pretty much like trapped in their houses because it's too cold to be outside. There's nothing fun to do. And also like because the sun's not there, you're just sad. So
Yeah.
I entered Berlin during that period of time where it was just cold. So it was like coming to a new country. I don't know anyone. I don't know anything. I don't have a job. I don't have anything. And it's cold as fuck. And I have and no one's outside. And I was like, wow. And that was so depressing. So I was like, oh, it's not just the cold. It's the sun. And that makes a difference because in my state, there's the sun. So yes, it's cold, but the sun will still come out. And
Yeah.
so you'll see that. And so you have that little moments. But in Berlin, there was months. I felt like the first time the thing came out, I was like, holy wow, what the hell? What is this? What is this feeling? I feel warm. I don't need a jacket. It was just like I was never so happy to see the sun. And after that, I was like, nah, I need a place like that. I need a place. Wait, hold on. What do you have for time? Oh, an hour. Okay. So let's like first I wanted to ask some last questions. So
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna do all of it. Nice. So what advice would you have for yourself or any incoming comedian? I know we had this conversation before. You're like, yeah, I don't know, but like honestly, I want you to say from the idea of like perspective because you're a really good comedian. I didn't pump you up as I should have. You're really good. You're really funny. I like your stories. I like how you introduce all these things, and it's your stage presence there. It's very obvious that you're confident in yourself, and you know what you're doing. And I like how you're changing the thing. I remember one time you pulled up the chair. And you just like changed it and tried to do. I was like, okay, I respect that. You're trying to, like go outside and do something different, and experiment on stage, So I respect that, and so that's why I wanted to also have you on because I see that when you're on stage, you're also. I see the process of thinking of like you're changing some jokes to align with the audience, or maybe you're trying something different. And I see the transformation of your jokes sometimes that you say, okay, I see what you say. Okay, maybe I can add this and change this or move this around. And I'm like, because we hear our jokes. And so it's really interesting. And you're really good. And that's why I really wanted to have you on.
Thank you.
As a comedian, what advice would you have for those coming or that you would have for yourself?
Ooh, for me, I think I would have like. Oh, I've never thought about it actually. I've never thought about giving advice to someone. Okay, let's start with giving someone because it's easier to give advice to others. I think for someone coming in, I would say, don't try to be too funny. Don't imagine. Don't put too high expectations. Start out slow. The audience will like you. But the thing is, the important thing is to try it. And I think everyone in their life should try out stand-up comedy once at least. Some of us love it as a profession. Maybe we want, but I think just because it's just a way to go out and tell your experiences. And I think people say, "Oh, I'm not funny," but I'm like, everyone has a funny story.
Yeah.
So just go out and tell it, and it's a way to see it. Maybe you like it, you'll do it. But I think my advice to not just up-and-coming comedians, but to anyone would be, try a stand-up comedy once. Don't need to make jokes. Go and tell a funny story. People will like it, but get the experience of at least doing it once.
Yeah, get outside the box. Try something that's uncomfortable and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation and saying, how am I going to go? Am I going to float or sink, you know? And that's a really, interesting.
I mean, there are more dangerous ways to actually do. This is one of the easiest way to do something like different.
And you don't die, you know? You don't have to die, you know? Oh,
exactly.
No, but it's really, like, it's the most nerve-wracking, of course, but it's also the most rewarding because it's like, do I sink or sink? Do I float or sink or float, you know? And you get outside your...
Well, the thing, you try it and you see if you like it. Maybe you might be great, but you don't want to come back because you just want to try it, but you have an experience. But do it because I think it's a great experience to sit and see people laugh. Yeah. For myself, I think I would just say that right now I'm trying to see results. Yeah. And then, but I'm very new to this. I've done just for like 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah, really new.
Yeah. So I'm like, and then when I meet others and I'm like, why am I not like, I'm expecting too much in too short time. And I'm like, okay, you have to build it slow. Like there are people who do it for 3 years, 4 years. So I'm like, don't try to look for results. Just keep doing it. Keep writing new stuff. Keep saying it. It's okay if it's funny, if it's not. Don't care if like someone wants to pay you or something. Just do it. Yeah. I think that's the advice I would give myself is just do it. Keep doing it. And at some point, things will fall into place.
Like Nike, just do it. Not sponsoring this, but yeah. Okay, perfect.
They should sponsor the show.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Nike, we're working on that, huh? One day. Anyways, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's always fun. I really like this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. And thank you for those watching with us. If, like I always, go put a like and subscribe to Arcade Studio Podcast. And that's it. Do you have anything you want to say? Any last words?
Nothing. Just laugh, guys.
Just laugh.
Everything is funny. Don't take life seriously. Laugh.
Just laugh. Okay. Coming from the comedian.
Oh, yes.
There we go. Thank you so much. Okay.